Today I find myself burning alive, trying to survive this hellscape that is Scorched Earth. An ugly beast has asserted its dominance over these lands for far too long, and I must defeat its alpha variant to once and for all bring peace to the land. But this is not the Scorched Earth you are used to. This is official PvE, where I have to fight for land and loot. Thief. Spend 100 real-life hours raising a wyvern and deal with trolls and griefers every other day. Do I smell a troll? That's if I can even get on the overcrowded servers. I'll have to grind my face off to secure my land, give up real-life hours to raise dinos. Alright, just 7 days to go. And maybe even quit my job to spend enough time to get this done. Being the luckiest man alive might not even be enough. What? Oh my god! Holy sh... Welcome to 100 Days Scorched Official. Here we go. There I was on the island. I caught wind of new Scorched Earth servers being dropped. In other words, I was literally just staring at the Discord. When the announcement came, I loaded up my survivor and I headed to the new land. I was literally the first one on the server. It was 0 of 70. Not 30 seconds went by between the Discord notification and me logging in. And just like that, I was in. But that's just step 1. I spawned at North 1 and I started making my way toward the spot I wanted to claim. I already planned it out in single player, including the best starting spawn to get there. Now, I just had to run. But before I could even take a few steps, I got kicked. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Because when you get kicked out, there is no way you can get back on with the number of people spamming that join button. It'd be a miracle if I got back. When I logged back in, it timed out, which meant that I hadn't fully logged out. So there is absolutely no way I'm getting back in, right? But I clicked join, put my hands together, and prayed to the Ark gods. And somehow, some way, I got back in. This was meant to be. I started grabbing berries and punching cacti. I needed thatch, wood, and fiber so I could start crafting thatch foundations in order to claim my land. I spawned in relatively close to where I wanted to be, and so I was able to make my way to that area on my first try. But before I could even get anything put down, a lowly wolf got me. I respawned and started the process over, but this time it put me even further away from my destination. I sprinted for my life trying to get my body back so I didn't have to keep recollecting those basic items. But once again, before getting any structures put down, I was taken out by a 150 terror bird. And then when I spawned back in, yet again, another terror bird. I was beginning to worry at this point. It doesn't take long for people to get their pillars, especially if they have tribe mates. I was at a disadvantage as a solo player, but also I was freaked out because I saw someone else in the area. So I had to keep going, and I had to hurry. I finally got some thatch foundations crafted, but when the sandstorm hit, I couldn't get away from the snake. And before I could once again put anything down, I got knocked out and killed. So right back to it. I was able to get back to my body and I grabbed my foundations and I finally started putting some down. I was still a bit panicky though, because this area was pretty large and someone could just as well be on the other side pillaring it up. So I had to hurry. I wasn't clear from the danger either. This caprol got me and set me back once again. It made it really hard to get back to my body because I had nothing to fight him with. So I basically just started over. I finally got some real foundations actually put down and was able to get myself enough hide to craft a sleeping bag. And after 40 minutes of struggling, I finally started to relax a little bit. You would never know it from watching this, but this was one of the most heart-pounding 40 minutes of my Ark career. Even though I could relax a little bit, I still had a lot of work to do. I spent the next hour and a half fully claiming my land. It was a pretty big area, so it took a lot of foundations. I was also fortunate to snag this red drop, which gave me a hugely helpful sniper and compound bow. Now that I had some land, next task was to get some dinos. I started getting my narcotics crafted and some arrows. It was nice having the compound bow since I couldn't craft a crossbow yet. I got some mutton from a drop, so I figured I'd go tame a carnivore. The only one nearby I could realistically get before the mutton spoiled was this carno. So I got him stuck in these ruins and I knocked him out. While waiting, I just stayed nearby gathering resources. This location has 2 really good drop spawns near my base, which is super helpful. I already snagged my second red drop and another solid yield from it. With 3 times and this button, it didn't take long at all for the Carno. I still have no metal or a good way to get it, so crafting saddles wasn't really an option. I just had it follow me back to base, and then I went to try and find something I didn't need a saddle for. I found this dope looking level 70 wolf, and I knew that it would do the job. I knocked it out in the same ruins as the Carno, and I stuck by farming resources until it was done. My next task was to find some metal, but I wasn't in the business of trying to haul metal around on my wolf, so an RG is in order. I didn't even bother with a trap. I knew if I could get a low enough level, I could knock it out fast enough with my compound bow. I got my target and downed him from the back of my wolf. Right nearby, an Anki. Perfect opportunity to get the perfect pair, an Anki and an RG. So I downed him as well. I had just enough resources to craft a saddle. I saddled up my bird and I went off to find a tiny bit of metal. Just enough for the smithy and basic metal tools. And just in time too, because a server message popped up for an update. I got my forge put down, tossed my metal in, and went and grabbed my Anki just in time before the server restarted. I spent a bit of time gathering resources, but even with the 3 times boosted rates, it's still tedious compared to using dinos. So getting a Dodicarus for stone and a thorny dragon for wood was my next task. They spawn everywhere, so finding them wasn't that hard. Both of them were actually right near my base. So first I knocked out the thorny, and then the Doed. The Doed was super low level, so it finished fairly quick. I used what little metal I had to get its saddle crafted and then started going to work on stone. I was going to need stone pillars to replace my thatch foundations, so I was keen on getting as much as I could early on. The pillars were popping up all around my base above and where I hadn't claimed, so I was still feeling some pressure to get my land secure. Getting my pillars up was my next priority. There's always a troll who comes along and finds a gap in your land and will try to build something. It happens every single time to me, so I wanted to be extra secure. I also got myself a saber tooth. I figured I could use these eventually for caving, but really I just liked its colors. Another day, another red drop. As people started to get their flyers, these red drops are going to be harder and harder to fight for, but I've been lucky up to now with some good starter loot. I continued on for a while, grabbing the basic necessities and all the loot drops I could. As I pushed out further and further from my base, my low-level RG was getting noticeable. The stamina in particular was crap, and so flying anywhere was no fun. I made it my next objective to get a better RG. I got what I needed for my trap and I went to hunt one down. I like using this stone gate trap even though it's not the cheapest. I find it to be the most secure, and since you can pick up structures, in my opinion, it's worth the investment. I found a decent level and I got it knocked out in the trap. Since I wanted as many levels as I could out of this one, I went out to get it prime meat, and with that it tamed up pretty quickly. Now that I had a decent setup going, at least in terms of having my starter dinos and a place to craft things, I decided to do some exploring. I set out on my RG to fly around, seeing if there were any good things to tame, and really I just wanted to see how much people have been built up so far. With the RG being as slow as it is, I spent a good hour just exploring. I ran into a Tapajar though, and I knew I had to at least go after it, considering how freaking slow the RG is. So I used my rare flowers. I was able to bolo him, and then I put him in stone gates just to be safe. But I successfully knocked it out. I did some more exploring while I waited, and when she finished I flew her back home. Red drop taken from me. And so it begins. Now that people are flying, the loot drops are going to be stolen likely on a regular basis, just like this one. This is a constant debate on every server. Some people will claim you can't steal what is not yours, like this person said, but the decent thing to do on a PvE server is the first person that gets there gets the drop. Not everyone plays that way though, unfortunately, so it's just some BS you gotta deal with. I call those people out on the server just so other players know what kind of people they are dealing with, but it's something I've learned to just let go. It was time to get my base started. I got some foundations put down so I could have a workshop area, better than this tiny thatch setup, and I moved my stuff over, which is always a process. I really wanted to tame the new Fasolasuchus before the 3 times ended, so I set out to the desert. I had some C4 from drops, so I was going to use that, but it was kind of hard to get close enough to it. I did use one grenade, and that was significantly easier. But I didn't have any more of those, so this was going to have to be a task for another day. I went back to base and I got my fabricator crafted and set up, and then started getting some gunpowder ready so I could make grenades. I got my cryo fridge and some cryos crafted at a nearby drop, and there was a megatherium right there for me to tame. It got wedged in these rocks, which meant I didn't need a trap. I got it knocked out pretty easily, so now I just had to wait for it. I set up my generator and cryo fridge while waiting, and then just literally went AFK. servers are still jam-packed, and once you get off, there is no getting back on. When I got back, my meg was finished and I was ready to go after a Faso again. I had plenty of grenades made up this time around. I found another low level and I started the process. I got kicked off a few times, but I just remained patient and I continued trying to knock it out. And eventually, I got him down. He was still going to be knocked out for a while, so I decided to fence him in. But that was one of the more brutal tames, even for 3 times. So I definitely didn't want to have to do it all over because some lowly vulture or something kills it. But it actually finished pretty quickly. I cryoed him and I headed home. I hopped aboard once I saddled him and I gave him a test run. And I gotta say, I'm impressed. Mostly by the fact that this thing didn't completely break the game. I thought it would be the cause of all kinds of mesh issues because you can essentially go partially into the mesh with it. But they did a really good job. And as much as this feels like a PvP dino, it does have some cool PvE benefits. It can travel quickly on the ground and in a sandstorm, but also clearing land for building is a pretty nice feature. Its best PvE asset though is its ability to collect flint. I can't remember a dino ever being this good at flint gathering. I just kinda wish it could collect sand instead. After cruising around on my new pet for a while and loading up on flint, I spent a bit more time farming all the other resources too. More stone, wood, and another round of metal farming. And since I had some things to craft that needed poly, like a shotgun, I took my tappy out to the desert to hunt down mantis. But it was brutal. I literally went around the entire map and I found only a couple. I've always been used to just seas of mantises with endlessly flowing poly, especially on a 3 times. But this just meant I was going to have to farm hard poly for things that needed a lot of it. After a long day of farming, I did just that. I went out and I got me some obsidian so that I could start getting poly crafted. I spotted a gem of an RG at a level 145. I set up my gated trap on this cliffside because that was really the only unclaimed land that I could use, and I very carefully got it in there. But of course, before I could trank it, I got kicked off the server. I was pretty upset because I was pretty sure the server was still full. That meant I was not getting back on, and I'd have to say goodbye to that 145 RG. But thankfully it was very late at night, and when I went to try to get back on, it showed 65 of 70. I got in, and the RG was still in the trap. Rejoice! I carefully knocked it out, and then I let it be safely in its trap until it was ready for food. This one was definitely going to get prime meat. I didn't have any kibble yet, but with 3 times, prime meat is almost just as good, and I wanted all the levels for it. While waiting, I had an interesting encounter with my new neighbors. The tribe above me decided to catch this drop. They built a platform that made it land in their base above me instead of my base down below, and I was mad. Stealing drops is one thing, but these people stole a whole drop spawn. I thought I had seen every type of trolling, but this took things to a whole new level. I certainly let them know how I felt in the chat, but I slowly came to realize they didn't really know what they had done. They just seemed kind of oblivious to why I was mad. My first instinct was to file a ticket because I was so incredibly annoyed, but after I cooled down, I actually realized this is not a bad thing. This drop is frequently a red drop, and there are constantly players flying in and grabbing it. If this did land in my base, those people would constantly be flying into my base, and as I thought about it, I really didn't want that either. So I ended up just leaving it be. It turned out this tribe was not trying to troll me or even realize what they were doing wrong. They were just kind of a weird tribe that didn't mean any harm or ill will, but their behavior was just kind of odd. Anyway, I let it go for now and I got back to my RG. It was another reminder, however, that people will find a way to mess up your day on PvE even if they are not trying to. And that prompted me to want to hurry up with my base, specifically the walls, to enclose this area off once and for all. So I got back to work farming stone, wood, and thatch, and lots of it. I crafted a few walls and I started walling things off. The Faso is so incredibly nice for clearing these rocks out. This would take 10 times as long with an Anki or a Doit. The behemoth gates are always so resource heavy. The thorny dragon was no longer cutting it for wood, so I got myself a chainsaw. Eventually I got tired of grinding. I set out to see if I could get another RG. Nothing high level, but I was interested in event colors too, so I quickly knocked out this green one, and then back near my base, a level 70 Megatherium. This was much better than the one I tamed, and it was basically in my base, so I just hopped on my Faso, and I tanked the hits. It put in some work, but I got it down before it took out my Faso. I was still on the lookout for better RGs. I really needed a female so I could get myself an imprinted one. I had to back out with my trap and trank stuff to see what I could find. I couldn't find anything better than this 55 female, so it was going to have to do for now, so that I could at least start popping some eggs. I got it down and fenced in because I struggled to get it in the trap. While waiting, I continued working on my behemoth gates, then back to collect my bird. There was a Rex nearby. I honestly hadn't even seen more than 1 or 2 of these so far. It was only a level 20, but since it was a female, I definitely had to go after it. It had a baby too, which would be really nice to get my hands on. Its cool colors. I got set up from a safe distance and I quickly knocked it out. And then another RG nearby. My trap was still set up, so it was perfect. But there were actually 2 RGs. I got the other one knocked out also. After these ones tame, I'll have 3 female RGs, which should be good enough to roll the dice with my male 145 and hopefully get one with good stats that I can raise and imprint. So off to get prime meat and feed the RGs and Rex, and once they finished, I got everything back home. The baby Rex was sadly gone. I looked everywhere in the area, but I couldn't find it, which was a bummer because I really liked those colors. When I got home though, I went right back to walling in my base, and I got my RGs set up to mate as well. I didn't have any ACs or a way to incubate the eggs. I grabbed my Anki and headed up to the mountain to get some metal and crystal and such so that I could start crafting some ACs. I figured I'd go with ACs because it'll be needed in the future for wyvern eggs. I might as well get started on them now. I headed out to do some more exploring. I was looking for things to tame. I still needed Rexies and a UD, but I could use more RGs, a better tappy, and a few other things, so I went out on a hunt. I spotted a ringed yellow drop for I think the first time, and I naturally went after it. I was ecstatic about what I got from it though. A max level UD saddle. Not a blueprint, but you really only need one. This was an incredible find. I wasn't anywhere near doing the boss fight, but at the very least I could trade this for huge profits. This was an absolute gem to find. I continued on near the Wyvern Trench to claim some land so I could put up a Wyvern trap before there's no more land over here. Soon enough, there will be traps every 20 feet, but it's always nice to have my own too, so I claimed a small patch of land near the trench. And then right in the exact same spot, another ringed drop and another gem. This time, a near max Megatherium saddle, a 113 Mastercraft Mantis saddle, and a 124 Iguanodon blueprint. Useless, but still it's a max level blueprint. What is going on though? I felt like this spot was crazy OP for these drops. 2 ring drops and 2 monster finds in a row. I decided to put up a small base over here so that I could periodically spawn in and check these drops to see if I could continue my lucky streak. I spent a good portion of time getting that set up, and then when I got back home, I had an unfriendly visitor. This was a problem, and exactly why I wanted to get my walls up. I didn't have anything near capable of taking this Titanosaur down, but I also didn't have anything down there, so I was just kind of forced to leave it roam and let it bathe in my waterfall. Eventually, I was getting too triggered and I tried kiting it away. I did get it a ways out, but I knew until I had my gates up, this thing is going to be a nuisance. So, back to grinding my behemoth gates. I had my RG eggs cooking near my ACs while doing so. I made some solid progress on my walls, but still had a bit to go. My babies hatched, so they required my attention instead. With no dinos like Maywings or Gigantoraptors here to raise the baby, until it gets to juvenile, it's pretty much a full-time job. So I stayed close and I just continued to farm the stone wood and thatch so that I could craft more gates and walls for my base. I had been logged off for some time, but when I came back, of course, the Titanosaur was still there. And my gates weren't fully up yet, so I had to try and kite it out. I felt bad though. I tried getting it out to the desert, but it kept going over towards this other person's base. I'm pretty sure they probably thought I was trying to kite it to them. I couldn't do much more about it though because the server was shutting down for an update, so I just had to leave it over there. I scooped up my babies because you never know if you can actually get back online after the update, and they would definitely starve if I couldn't. As long as you are quick about it, you usually can get back on though. I sat and I refreshed the server list until mine popped up, and I made it back on. And because I was so annoyed with the Titano, I went right back to trying to fully secure my base with my walls. Once I finally got to a point I felt somewhat secured, I finally made it my mission to go after a wyvern. I had been seeing more and more tribes get theirs grown, and I was getting real jealous. So off I went, but I was interrupted by a server update, so I had to head home and wait a bit, but this was a good thing. The wyvern den has been overcrowded with people grabbing eggs non-stop. This break and server reset might just give me the chance I need to actually get an egg. I hopped on my RG and immediately headed over there once I got back into the server. And just as I was hoping, I found an egg and a nest right away. I patiently waited for the wyverns to fly away, and then I snuck my RG down into the nest. And when I looked at it, it was a 150! A freaking 150 for my first egg. I was so hyped. But my nerves shot through the roof because now I had to get it out of here. I grabbed the egg and I headed for my planned escape route. I was swarmed immediately, trying to zigzag in the air and dodge the attacks. The fire breath killed me in less than 30 seconds, but it didn't matter. My RG didn't last much longer either. I was just trying to get the egg far enough away from the den so that when I got back to grab it, I don't get aggroed. But also so that no other survivor can find my dead body and take the egg. And that's what I was really concerned about. So I raced back as fast as I could, and when I got there, the area was indeed clear, and I had myself a 150 poison wyvern. I went home and I crafted more ACs to get this thing cooking, but also an enclosure for it, because any old person can come along and take the egg if it's just sitting outside. I did want to build an indoors to my base, but I was in no hurry. My fortitude is plenty high to survive the outdoors, and also building is kind of a waste during events, because I don't get any boosted rates for crafting structures. I'll do a ton of resource farming, and then when the event ends, I'll jump into the actual building. For now, this tiny enclosure should keep my eggs safe. I decided to test my fate once again and go after more wyvern eggs with an RG, because what I really wanted was a lightning egg. I found one that was usable, nothing great, but I went for it. And since people have been clearing the den, I realized I wasn't even being chased. A super easy grab, so I went and I grabbed another. But eventually I was chased down. My dodge, dive, dip, duck, and dodge seemed to be working pretty well. I used this trap to block him off, and just like that, I outmaneuvered a wyvern on an RG. I felt pretty good about myself, and now I had a bunch of backup eggs in case one of them dies. Because, let's be honest, it's bound to happen. I spotted a really cool looking tappy on my way back, but I didn't have all I needed to tame it. I was planning on coming back for it though once I dropped my stuff off. Back home, my first wyvern egg hatched. No event colors, but still happy that it was a 150. I tossed out my new eggs and then headed back to hunt down the tappy. Some rare flowers and Ebola, all I needed to get it knocked out. I farmed some obsidian nearby and collected some drops and mostly hung around until it was done. I set out on my new tappy to search for some things. I had bees on my mind. I flew into the bee cave to see what I could find, but apparently the bees were still bugged and spawning in the mesh. However, some people were still able to get them. So I searched and I searched, but I came up empty. I ended up heading back home to do more resource gathering. My lightning eggs were hatched too and well on their way growing up. I had lots more crafting to continue expanding my base. I went back out again to hunt some mantis for their poly. This time I had a much better yield, but still not as much as I was hoping for. However, more than enough to get my chemistry bench. I continued farming the things I needed to get my chem bench crafted, like pearls and electronics, and then I finally got that set up too. My wyverns are still not done and I'm still very impatient with getting new ones, so I risked another RG run. But this time, the nests were actually empty. Still people in here 24/7 grabbing eggs. I continued the endless grind of farming all the resources and started building out more of my base. I went out with Wolverine to see if I could find some oil. Frustratingly, most of the oil pumps are locked. These things pump out more than any one tribe needs. It really sucks when people lock them. I finally found one unlocked though, but it only had less than 2 stacks. And this is what happens. Everyone who doesn't have a node is coming to this one, so there's going to be none in it until this person eventually decides to lock it. If everyone kept theirs unlocked, there would be more than enough oil to go around. It's super annoying. I came away with fewer oil than I did oil rigs from drops. Lame. My RGs were getting close to being done, but my wyverns still had a ways to go. However, their food was getting low, which meant I needed to get some milk. But that was a whole task in itself, so I had to cryo them until I could figure out a solution to doing that. I began my first round of many gathering obsidian. My plan was to spend as much time as I could during the 3 times loading up on hard poly. That way I could just buy a bunch of stuff. Poly is usually the currency of choice, and since everyone seems to be farming the crap out of all the high level and colorful wyverns, I figured if I wanted to get my hands on any as a solo player, I'd be better off buying them from someone than trying to fight for them in the overcrowded trench. So I became obsessed with obsidian farming, and not much longer later, my RGs were all grown up. Now I could really amp up my obsidian metal crystal farming from this mountain near my base. Eventually I made my way back in, and I flew back out to find more oil. I found a couple more unlocked pumps, but still not a great yield. I'm gonna have to figure out an alternative because I was starting to need gas for my generator more frequently. But I needed oil for my cryos, so I got a bunch of those crafted. And then I headed out to the desert with my megatherium to start collecting chitin. At the time, I didn't know the megatherium could go into caves, so it was a little less efficient out in the open desert. But I still got more than I could carry. I was getting anxious about my wyverns, so I made it my next task to get some milk. I had an idea of crafting some turrets to make it easier to kill off the males. So I got some made up and some stuff to put up a trap. And just as I was getting ready to head over there, someone in the chat had some extra milk. I jumped at that chance. I flew over and I grabbed my gracious gift. This was so clutch, and I was so very thankful. I went back and I fed my starving poison wyvern so I could finally continue raising it. I was getting really tired of this RG at this point, so I really wanted it to be done. I still went out to the desert to set up a trap and some turrets because I'd need them for the future milk. So I made a mistake. I logged out and I forgot to cryo my wyvern, which meant I could not log back in because the servers were full, and then I had to go to work, which meant it was almost definitely gonna starve to death by the time I got back. I completely accepted its fate. There wasn't a shred of doubt that it would be dead when I logged back on. When I did log on, there it was, still alive. It was super bloody, but it was alive. It was a miracle. I rushed to get it into its cryo, and with just 50 health left, I was able to save its life. This thing was seconds away from dying. I was so happy that I didn't have to start all the way over with this wyvern or with a different one. Also, my other wyvern was only a level 60, so it would not have been anywhere near as useful. I can't believe this thing went from like 20% maturation to 75% without a feeding. Thank God for 3 times. So I went back out to try to get myself some milk, but turns out my trap was a little janky. It needed to be adjusted. Once again though, as I was getting ready to do that, the same people had more milk for me. Talk about great timing. These people were my new favorite tribe. I gave it to my bloodied poison wyvern so that he could keep raising. That should be enough for him to finish on his own. And then back to grinding. I was locked into getting stone to make CP to craft that mountain of hard poly that I'm trying to collect. My Titanosaur friend was back. My walls weren't completed though yet, so this time it was from the other side. And while it still wasn't a huge deal, it did prompt me to get back to working on my walls and gates. So I did that for a while. It wasn't pretty, but it should do the job of keeping these damn things out for now. My wyvern was all done up. I set out to get myself more eggs. This will be a lot easier now. Seems like they barely even chase you now compared to ASE, but I really don't mind it. I came away with a bunch of junk eggs. Nothing good, but I'll save these for kibble later. I finally got back to working on my base a little more. I was overflowing with resources, so even though I didn't want to spend too much time building, I needed to clear house a little. So I started laying the foundations to my base with the periodic trip to the mountain to grab more and more obsidian. And then, another troll. This person decided to put their raft in my base. This sucked. I was so incredibly mad. This area is clearly my base. Yes, it's water, but this is no different than someone bringing a Paracitherium or a Bronto base into your walls. I leave this area unlocked so people on foot can access it, but this person decided to build a completely large, ugly eyesore of a raft in my base. It completely ruined my aesthetics and it pissed me off. Not only that, but they had a Purlovia trapped inside. Who's taming Purlovias on PvE? What? I was definitely convinced this was a troll waiting to let this wild Purlovia loose and steal someone's loot. Not to mention, this was next to a drop, so it kind of all made sense. This had to be a troll, and they were not responding to me at all, so it just all lined up. I literally could do nothing though except file a ticket, so that's what I did. It's not something I wanted to do, but I felt like I had to watch my back every time I go down to this water in case this person tries to grief me. But tickets are slow, so if they even do anything about it, it would be a while. For now, I sadly just had to deal with this eyesore in my base. And it actually made me take a huge time detour. I wasted a bunch of time crafting pillars and such because I wanted to stop them from putting more rafts or other people doing the same. and I spent way too long doing so. I finally upgraded my forge to the industrial now that I had my foundations down, and then a whole lot more farming now that I burned a ton of resources on over-securing my pond. I took another trip out to the desert for chitin, and then I took some time to organize my increasingly large collection of stuff. Someone in the chat called out an ovis. I had veggie cakes that I had gotten from drops, so I went to see if I could tame it. I found it and its baby, and I got myself a couple ovis. Then another trip to the den for more eggs. It was definitely my mission to get as many colorful wyverns as I could. I wanted stats too, but those you can get whenever. Obviously, event wyverns only spawn during events, so just like everyone else, I'll be in here as much as I can while the event is happening. Also, I needed milk, and now that I have a wyvern, it's much easier to get. I came away with a very successful batch of eggs and milk. I also just learned about the new barrels from the Bob's Tall Tales DLC, and let me just say this is single-handedly worth the DLC cost. Being able to store milk long-term, or meat even, is incredibly useful. I used to breed wyverns, and this would have saved so much time farming and refarming milk. Now I can actually farm a ton at once and not worry about it spoiling. And then, more obsidian. I got crystal too so that I could have just enough to get my grinder set up. I was starting to see a need for some honey, so I made another attempt at finding a bee. Firstly, I still didn't have a jerboa somehow, so I tamed this pink and orange one quickly. Then I popped my rare flowers and traversed the entire cavern. Apparently the rare flowers can get them to come out of the mesh, but after a full run through I had no luck. I had a bunch more wyverns that hatched. Finally, I was getting some cool event colors that I liked, but all these new wyverns needed cryos, so I made another trip to a drop to craft more pods. And then I continued to work on my base and did some base organizing. I had a ton of resources to move into my vaults, which is always time consuming. It was time to get back to working on my base, at least continuing to get the foundations down. I spent another huge portion of the day farming the essentials: stone, wood, thatch, fiber, and cacti, set up my water tanks and a cooking pot, and then I slowly started moving the rest of my stuff over to this area, which will eventually get a roof. I continued the tedious process of moving all my stuff from its temporary base to a more permanent location. The biggest annoyance is all this heavy stuff in the vaults, but once I got another temporary egg incubation room set up, I decided to take a break on the building again. My wyvern babies were in need of a feeding, so it was time again to head to the scar to grab some milk. And as always, I'll try to grab a few more eggs. There are so many traps out here now that it's pretty easy to get this done. The hardest part is finding the wyverns because everyone else is still going after milk. Luckily, they respawn pretty quickly, so it never takes more than 20 minutes to get a bit of milk. But this time, there were plenty of wyverns and eggs. I tossed out my eggs, shared some milk with a fellow survivor, and then I fed my babies. My first event-colored wyvern was all grown up. I gave it a quick test run. Unfortunately, it's a pretty low level, but I really wanted its colors, which is why I raised it. And then another trip to the bee cave. But just like last time, I came up completely empty. Didn't even see or hear them in the walls. So somehow it took me this long to try out the treasure chests. I had a bunch in my inventory, but never gave them a try. Also, I didn't realize they expire. I guess I just assumed it was probably mid-tier loot. But when I finally decided to try it out, I hunted down the primitive treasure chest, pulled out my shovel, and wow! Talk about top tier loot! A max level pick and a max level Megatherium saddle. This was some serious loot. I was so happy, but so angry at myself that I didn't do this sooner, and I probably let 5 or 6 of them just expire because I really thought nothing of them, especially these primitive ones. But oh my god, now I'll go out of my way to get every single treasure map. These are incredible. To finish the day, I had a lot more farming to do and look after my newly hatched wyverns. Now that I knew what those maps could give you, I wanted more of them. I couldn't find the best way to farm them, but it seemed like everything drops them. So I went out to kill a ton of stuff. Mostly RGs because people seem to say they get a lot from them, but I must have killed like 30 or so and I got none. I'm sure if I kept going, I'd get them eventually, but it really felt like a super grindy way to get them. Something I just wasn't up for in the moment. So I quit with none to show for it, and I went back to continue working on my base. I wanted to get these walls finished and the gates set up, so I took my Faso out to clear the land and work on getting everything secure. And when daylight came, I grabbed some poop from my Rex, and I headed out into the desert to get myself a dung beetle. I didn't have crops yet, but I will soon, and also since the oil wells are all locked, I was gonna need these guys for oil too. I tossed them in my tiny temporary garden, and I put down some crop plots as well. The servers are still quite busy, and I'll have the best luck getting milk and eggs early on. So I made a routine stop over at the trench to gather what I needed. I had a lot of wyverns raising. Mostly if they are female or if they have a color or a good stat, I decided to raise them. Low levels are really annoying to raise though, so if I can get those raised up as much as possible before the event ends, that is ideal. But there's no way I'm raising all of these right now, because that would require way too much milk farming, and that's probably all that I would literally be doing. Instead, I'll periodically toss them out while I'm doing other things, let their food drain, and then cryo them until I can get back to them at my leisure. Thank God for cryos. But I still had endless farming to do. And another visit from the Titanosaur, which always prompts me to hurry up and get my base fully secured. So I got back to my walls. And before I could get them done, the Titanosaur made its way up near my base again. But this time it was going to be a huge problem. I didn't mind it being down on the ground in my pond where I only had pillars, but if it gets wedged up top here, this will be an annoying nightmare. What especially concerned me was this person was attacking it, and if it was attacking it near my base, it would destroy everything. They were literally just trying to kill it. It wasn't a troll, but still, it had me quite concerned, so I stuck to finishing my walls. I had a very routine day, starting with milk and eggs, then snagging some loot from drops, then grinding all the resources to continue building. I was almost done with my walls and gates. I was taking way longer than expected though, but naturally that's what happens when you build for looks. But finally I got my base all the way enclosed. I put down a raft in my pond, mostly in hopes to block other people doing the same, like this annoying one which is still here. But I also had the idea of putting my garden down here. I thought it might look cool on the water, and it would serve two purposes by blocking my land. I got the raft put down, but I needed a lot more crystal to get my greenhouse crafted, which is exactly what I did next. I hadn't needed it for much, so I was tapped out, and I had to spend a decent time farming it. But once I did, I started crafting and assembling my greenhouse. And apparently, I've never built on a raft before, because I quickly ran into the too many structure problem. I really thought I could just put a large box on here, but that wasn't going to happen. I tried resizing it and making it fit, but ultimately it was just going to be too small for what I wanted. So I wasted a ton of time doing all of this. I was running low on oil and my dung beetles weren't really producing much yet, so I checked to see what I could find. Fortunately, I was able to get just enough to get more gas for my generators, but after that, it was back to the grind. I was in a pretty good place as far as dinos I wanted, which meant I could focus more on building. I still wanted to spend most of my time during the event farming the resources, but now that I was locked into finishing my base, I went ahead and did some more building. I got most of my foundations down for what I wanted, and I started on a proper greenhouse. Now that I had my greenhouse, I needed a beehive. I went over there and I finally saw my first bee. I popped some bug spray and I went to feed it. Because I was using the rare flowers, it took 2 feedings. But after the first feeding, the bees attacked me. And of course, my wyvern was on attack my target. So just as quickly as I fed it, my wyvern murdered it. That was annoying. I didn't know how long it would be until I could finally get another one, because at this point they are still bugged. I flew around looking for more, but of course there was nothing. Next time I will be sure to use kibble so that it only has to be 1 feeding. I had mostly been crafting in stone up to now, but grinding those adobe structures was the routine now, and that required lots of annoyingly heavy sand. So a bit more tedious than stone structures, but after a good haul I finally began putting some walls and a roof on my base. I started the day with a round of milk gathering. This is beginning to be fairly routine. I find being early in the morning in real life to the trench usually gives me enough time to easily get the wyverns that I need. They respawn fairly frequently anyway, so getting milk actually is easier than I expected, considering how many people are doing the same. But once I got it, it was back to the bee cave. I was so determined to get a bee, and now that I had actually seen one outside the mesh, I was even more anxious to get one. I found one, and I made sure my wyvern was on passive, but when I went up to it, I could not feed it. The prompt just would not show up, but for some reason, it just did not want to be fed. So this one was broken. Another failed attempt at getting a bee. Seriously annoying. I went back to building my base. After being on the server for as long as I have, and the fact that I only have 1 low-level 20 Rex was a problem. If I was going to do a boss fight, I needed Rexes ASAP. Since it was impossible to find anything in the wild, I decided to buy some. Someone was offering 50/50 eggs for 500 ing, which means a good Rex was bred with a lesser Rex, and you have 50% chance to get the good stats. At this point, I was willing to take those chances. I bought 6 to ensure that I could at least get a couple with the good stats, and then I will just breed them out. So I grabbed my eggs from this tribe, I headed home, and I immediately started cooking them. During the event, they take about 2 hours to hatch, and while I waited, I just continued doing the routine stuff, putting the finishing touches on my base, and continuing my grind for resources. When the eggs hatched, I found myself with luck on my side. 5 out of the 6 had good enough stats, about 10,000 health and over 300 melee. For unmutated Rexes, this should be plenty good. At least, I hope so. But also, I got 3 females, which is maybe even more important. Now, once these raise, I can pop out a bunch more eggs and then fully raise an army. But first, I have to raise these ones. About 1.5 days in real life with the 3 times event, which is still a decent bit of time. I got them set up with their food as babies, and I took care of the hardest part, which is watching over them, feeding them until juvenile stage. Oh, and I looked for more bees, but of course, there was none. I had imprints to do on my Rex. It's really important that these imprint during the 3 times because they get 50%. Otherwise, it's 9%, and you need 10 of them, which is a pain. The event was nearing the end too, so I was in a hurry to get these things fully imprinted ASAP. I had all the things I needed, including cooked prime fish meat, which I luckily got from a drop. And then, back to farming. After a full day of grinding, I set out to see if I could get the next piece of my puzzle, a Yudi. I found a decent level, and I attempted to get it in a trap. But the shout affecting the wyvern so much makes this a challenge. It kept fearing my wyvern, and then all these rocks made it hard to maneuver. Also, it was stupid dark out. I really struggled to get this thing in there. In fact, it was taking so long, the damn thing just disappeared. Such as Ark. I was pretty annoyed because that was the best one I had seen this entire time. All the others were so low level, it's the only reason I didn't tame one before. But now I had to continue searching. While gathering meat, I scooped up this baby Daedon, just because it was a really good level. It was time for the second and final round of imprinting. I got that done, and the Rexes were around 34%. But the event was ending, so they were going to take some time to finish. However, now that they are imprinted, it should be a lot more passive to do so. I made another trip to see if I could find a Yudi. This time I found a decent level female. I need a male and a female so that I can breed an imprinted one. Even though this one's level wasn't great, I was tired of looking. It was near death, but I managed to get it knocked down safely. I did some resource farming while I waited, then I scooped her up and I headed home. While out doing a bit of drop farming, I came across a 135 male. You always find it when you are not looking. But I was prepared. I had my trap and my trank stuff on me. I tossed down the trap and had a bit of back and forth with him, struggling once again to get it in the trap. But I wasn't going to let this one get away. I was determined, and I eventually got it in there. And also got it knocked down. I went back to get more gates to fully secure this guy because I desperately needed it to tame near 100% efficiency. So this guy was going to get some kibble. Only I didn't have bees yet. So I made yet another attempt at getting one. But nope. Then I remembered I have an Ovis. And this is exactly why I wanted them, as a kibble backup. I slaughtered my own for its mutton, and I got the exact amount I needed. I quickly flew it over to my downed Yudi, fed it, and voila! A really nice male stud Yudi. But now the hard part. Breeding these is an actual nightmare. I'd rather raise 10 wyverns than one stupid Yudi. They take just as long to raise, and the imprints are worse. The amount of feedings are more frequent than a wyvern. It sucks. So I went back to base to breed them immediately and to start cooking that egg. While out gathering meat, I scooped up myself another baby. This time a Megatherium. I wanted an imprinted one for caving, so I snagged this one because the 2 I have are still lower level than this guy. I brought him home and I set him up with some food. A new day, another trip to the bee cave, and another failed attempt. Wait, no, this time there was actually a bee. It was just up really high and in the mesh, but the rare flowers brought it down and out. I had everything ready. This time, I was not gonna let this thing get away. I waited for it to be in clear space, ran up to it with my kibble, and finally, freaking bee. This was all done before it was patched. So I was so happy to finally get one. I'm sure by now it's a much easier process, but I spent so much time looking. Now I can actually make kibble. Not that I really needed it much anymore. My baby Yudi hatched and came out as a 190 with really solid stats. I was very happy with it, and it was definitely going to be an alpha boss quality. So I got it set up to start the long 7-day process of raising. I crafted some kibble, and then I upgraded my Doedicurus with a better one that I tamed here in my yard, as well as I did some more treasure hunting. I had a ton of babies out between Rexes, Yudi, Daeodon, Megatherium, and Wyverns, so I mostly stuck around home for a good portion of the day. My Rexes were all finished at this point, so I was able to breed the females and get myself 3 more eggs to cook. I tossed them out and I let those cook while I furthermore worked on my base. The Titanosaur was back, but it looks like some of the other people were annoyed by it too. I joined the fight because I didn't want this thing coming in my base. My walls were actually working like they were supposed to, but why not kill this thing anyways? I grabbed my strongest wyvern and I contributed to the fight. Surprisingly, even with this many people though, it took some time, but a successful takedown in the end. My next set of Rex eggs were finally done. These had to cook for the full 5 hours now that the event is over. I ended up with a couple more females, which should help increase egg production once they are raised. But these ones will take much longer with no event. My Megatherium had finished raising and had some levels to put into it. It was time for me to go caving. I set out to grab my first artifact. My imprinted Megatherium and a 121 saddle should be more than enough to handle this cave. But honestly, I wasn't really familiar with it or how tough it would be. I made my way in, squeezing barely past the choke point. I quickly got my bug buff and obliterated everything in my path, except for this rubble golem. But it was doing almost no damage at all to me, so I felt pretty safe. The only thing is it was taking really long to kill. So eventually I just got bored and moved on. I continued making my way down through the cave, easily mowing down everything in my path, until I got to the artifact. I casually strolled my way out of the cave. I had no idea it would be so easy. I kind of wish I would have just done it before. I definitely didn't need to go through raising and imprinting a Megatherium. The one I had would have done just fine. But oh well, not like my Rexes or Udis are done up to do a fight anyways. Also, I noticed I got a treasure map. This was the fastest I had gotten one, and I came to the realization the cave is the perfect place to farm these. Something I plan on doing in the near future. For now, I took my artifact and boatloads of chitin back home to check on my babies. I was getting closer and closer to being ready, but it really all depended on my Rexes and Yudi to finish raising, which takes real life days. So while that happened, I spent a lot of time farming things and just playing very casually. I did a good bit of building, some cave runs for loot, milk farming, and I just messed around. I wasn't in any sort of hurry, so I spent quite a few days with little progress toward the fight. But eventually I kicked things back in gear and I began the final preparations. I continued popping more eggs so that I could have backup in case a catastrophic outcome in the fight and I lose everything. Then I began crafting the saddles. This 77 Journeyman BP is the best I have, but it's kinda nice because they are super cheap and my metal reserves are fairly limited still. I grinded all my junk to get extra resources and then crafted as many as I could. So today was an important day. Not for the sake of trying to beat the boss, but I had a huge win with my base. This annoying raft, which has been here over a month now, finally had a person in it. And I finally was able to talk to this person. Turns out, all they wanted was pearls. That's why they had their raft here. They didn't have a good flyer, and they didn't have a good way to get pearls. Seems like a long time now to not have a flyer. But I wasn't about to be an a-hole to this person. I was as nice as possible, hoping that they would actually listen to me. I offered them a ton of pearls and electronics, and I pled for them to move their raft. Eventually, they realized how upsetting it was to me, and they did the right thing. So it turns out diplomacy actually worked. I was so happy and so relieved. But then it was time to get back to work. I continued farming metal so that I could finish my saddles. And metal was actually a problem. The mountains near my base weren't yielding enough on one-times, so I crafted a metal smelting station near a more metal-rich spot, and I continued gathering as much as I could. I really wish I would have started collecting talons every time I had gotten milk before, but I forgot. So now it was time to farm wyverns. I needed 20 of each, fire, poison, and lightning for the alpha boss. I decided to load up my turrets for a little extra support, and then I farmed as many as I could. Once my wyvern's health was dangerously low, I headed home with a decent start. But still, I had a lot more to go. Back home, I tossed out my Rexes and I began leveling them so that they could heal up for the fight. It was a new day, so I went back to the trench for more wyvern farming. This time I brought my lightning wyvern, who is actually my strongest. But also dealing with lightning blasts without a lightning wyvern is a quick way to have a dead wyvern. So I used her to once again collect as many as I could before health got a little low. I was making progress, but still had less than 10 of each. This is beginning to get a bit more grindy than I expected. Now I really wish I had started collecting them sooner, because my Rexes were all done up and saddled. All I needed was 2 more artifacts, so I was very close. Back to the trench to continue the grind. But today I became the luckiest player in the history of Ark. I got the most lucky drop ever. What? Oh my god! Holy shit! Oh my god! What just happened? A 124 UDBP and Rex BP in the same drop? That's just absurd. But that's not even all I got. A Max Faso and Max Yudi crafted. I mean, come on. Please, honestly, if you have ever heard of anybody being luckier than this, I gotta know, because this just seems insane. While talon farming, I made a rookie mistake. Or rather, I was just super impatient. While trying to get a poison talon from a 190, my wyvern was out of stamina, and I panicked. I got off, and the poison escaped the trap, and I thought it was closer to death than it was. Sadly, I lost my best wyvern. Seconds later, I finished off the poison. I was mad at myself. That was a stupid user error and it should never have happened. But I was so close to having everything I needed, I didn't have time to mourn. I went home to get my next best lightning, which is still pretty solid, to finish the job. I was nearing getting what I needed for talons after a couple more runs, but I still needed 2 more artifacts. I prepped my only Thyla, which was a level 80 tame, to head into my next cave. I was hopeful that I could just run past everything. No way my Thyla is strong enough to clear this cave. But when I got in the narrow pathway, I realized I wasn't going to make it very far. I tried to turn around, but swarmed as ever before I could lodge myself free. I had a dead Thyla. That was not at all how I hoped it would go. I knew I need to rethink the strategy for this, but since I don't have another Thyla or anything other than a Megatherium, that was my only choice. So I grabbed Megan and I headed in. She easily cleared the caves, but I completely forgot about the gap. It's been so long since I've been in here, and so I was hit with another roadblock because I didn't have any grapples. This is why my instinct wanted to come in here with a Thyla in the first place. So back out of the cave and back home to get grappling hooks. Now I was ready. Let's hope 3rd time's a charm. Once again, I breezed through the first part. I had to deal with this rock golem, but other than that, I popped some bug spray, cactus broth, and focal chili. I had one final round of talon farming. I quickly got what I needed, then began setting up my Rexes. I put down a cryo near the green ob so I didn't have to haul them across the map, and then I started cooking a bunch of meat for my Daedon. All I needed now was the final artifact, but I don't have anything to take on this cave. My Megatherium won't fit, so the only other option is to do it on foot. I popped all the consumables I needed to make myself fast and virtually invisible. A little turned around. No, I came from that way. Yeah, I came from that way. I think this is right. Crap. Oh, crap. Oh! Oh, come on. Alright. Screw it. This from here? Yes, I can. Very nice. Oh, ooh, ooh. Thought I was going to die there. Got it. Now I just got to get out of here. Oh, that was close. That was definitely a death. And we're good. Grab the snake. No, 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 no. Just like that, I had it all. Everything I needed. It was time for the fight. I began setting up my squad near the obelisk. 17 Rexes with around 30k HP and 300 to 600 melee. Just one of those is a junk Rex, one beefy Daedon, and one thick beauty. Here we go. Woo, it's time. I'm actually kind of nervous for this. I don't know why I'm so nervous. This should be easy. You never know what goes wrong, though. Whew. Just so much time going into this. I don't want to fail. All right, here it is. Now or never. Oh, crap. What's it? Oh, no. Shoot. It's doing that stupid punch bug. Well, let's hope I don't have to get off the Yudi. It's too late now to restart. Crap. That sucks. Frickin' Ark. My stamina's not replenishing. Yeah, because this is this stupid punch bug. Alright, well, guess I'm not getting off the Yudi at all. Yep, it's punching him. Dang it, stop. Okay. Alright, we're good. Let's get these guys going. Come on, attack. And I'm stuck, like always. This platform really needs to be bigger. Attack, let's go, come on. You're not doing anything, come on, let's go. What are we doing? This is ridiculous. Alright. Alright, maybe if I get him to follow, let's get him to move. Just wasting time here. Come on, let's go. Okay. Okay, team, let's go. Let's do this. Like how I'm not even on my Yudi. There he is, landing. Let's go. Okay, now's the time. Let's attack. Get that roar. There we go. Get some hits in. That's what we need. Let's block him in so he can't fly away. Here we go. Oh, there he is. Okay, we're good. We're good. That was a good bit of damage. Okay, a little better than I thought. This is good. This is good. We can do this. Just gotta wait for it to land. Keep that roar going. This is so annoying. I do not have the patience for this. All right, there we go. Come on. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's get him. Took off again. It's all right. They're still hitting him from the ground. Daedon is healing. This is good. Should be okay as long as we can. Is that a sandworm already? Oh. I thought they'd come later. Should be good as long as they'll freaking land. Oh, I thought that was it. Come on, guy, just land for me, please. The only thing I'm worried about now is time. Not a lot of time left, but still, this is like... I'm gonna go 5 minutes in between each landing is not gonna work. There he is. Oh, he landed for 2 seconds. That's not gonna cut it. Come on. At least we don't have the sandworms to deal with yet, or the golems. That's when it starts to get really annoying. Man, if we could just... I should have brought, like... Should have brought more firepower so I can shoot him. All I got is my primitive shotgun, but I don't think that's going to cut it. I don't want to get off my UD either because I'm bugged and I might not get my stamina back. God, just land, dude. There it is. Come on, let's go. We got to take advantage of this. Come on, let's go. Let's go, let's go. Come on. Get in there with my UD a little bit. Does virtually nothing, but maybe we can block him in. Yes, let's lock him in here. Is it even going down? It's not flashing. Oh, it is. It is. Okay. It's just permanently... They're just doing so much damage. It's good. It's good. It's dropping. It's dropping. Let's get as much down as we can before he takes off again. Ah, there it is. Crap. Okay. That's all right. This is a good chunk. We got... about a quarter of the way into the fight, and we got about a quarter of health, so we should be okay. Hopefully. Hopefully, if it doesn't just keep flying. Man, I wish there was just a way to make him land or something. This is just annoying. I hate just waiting. Alright, let's go. Let's go. It's time. It's time. Nice. Get him, get him, get him. Doing alright. Get that down to at least halfway here. That would be nice. Keep fighting, keep fighting. Let's go. Let's go. There it is. Going down. Dropping, dropping, dropping. Halfway. Alright, this is good. This is good. Is he stuck? That would be awesome if he's stuck. That would be so awesome if I could just finish it right here. Come on. Come on. Keep dropping. Let's go. Come on, come on. I think he's stuck. There we go. Let's go. Come on. Oh, crap. Nope, we got free. It's all right. We good. That was a good chunk. All right, let's back up. Oh, I thought he was going to land again. Let's just keep them protected. We don't got the golems yet. I'm surprised they haven't come out yet. Be patient, be patient. We got plenty of time. I think they're in the way, though. I think he's trying to land in their spot. Let's try to move them. Protect it first. I think he might be trying to land right there. If I can't get these guys out of the way a little bit. Yep, there he goes. He's land. Oh, no. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think he's just trying to land in that spot. I don't want to move him too far away, though, because then it would take forever to get back there if he does land right there. Room. It looks like he's trying to land. Come on, just land, dude. He's just trolling me. Come on, just freaking land. He's got 12 minutes. No, I hate getting stuck. It's literally the worst part about this. There he is. Come on. Now's our time, guys. Let's go. Let's go. Get in there. Not great positioning. That's okay. Get those hits in. Nice. We're getting them. We're getting them. This is good. Come on. I just want to finish him off right here. Let's be done with it. Let's go. Oh, crap. The golems. I see him in the distance. Come on. Let's just get him right here. Don't let him take off again, guys. Come on. Come on. Get this done. Get this done. Come on. I can't mess around with those golems right now. Let's go. Come on. Come on. We're so... Oh, no. Come on. Okay. Got plenty of time. I'm just worried about those golems. Just keep them buffed. They are getting him in the air, though. I see that health dropping a little bit. Yep, see? Come on. We can just bite him from the air. Let's just finish it off right here. Come on. We can do this. You don't need to land. Let's go. Let's go. Come on. He's so close. I should just use my shotgun here. Rexes look okay, though. Just be patient. You got 10 minutes, man. Just be patient. Just be patient. Oh, he's so close, though. Daedon is not even close, so that sucks. Screw it. I should just get my shotgun out. Oh, yes, we got him. Don't even need it. Let's go. Ah, yes. Woo, got him from the air. Let's go. Woo. Man, that was weirdly nerve-wracking.
You continue to impress, Survivor. As you have grown in strength, I have been searching Helena's memories, finding what I have forgotten all these long years. Her friends, and the journeys they had. Was it all for nothing? No. It had to be done, so that one day you could exist. Together, you and I, we can put this right. You must travel onwards, Survivor, for your greatest trials are still to come.
So, that's how I went from squeezing water from a cactus to fighting a Mandy Whatsit in a ghost town.
Wicked.
Just goes to show, you gotta stay ready for the unexpected. And you'll always need to stick by the folks who have your back.
Didn't you say you tamed the wastes all by your lonesome?
Well, I had some help.
Oh, yeah. You still haven't told me where you met, you know, him.
Oh, wouldn't you rather hear that story from the big guy himself?
No way! Unlike you, he's got no sense of humor.
You just sit tight while your Uncle Bob thinks about how to tell this next part without giving nightmares.
But I like scary stories!
Hey, no, I was talking about it giving me nightmares. See, this is the point in our story where things get dark. Real dark.
Ah,